I got to get this out of the way because it's been a burning question in my mind since the election. We heard a lot of vocal support on Wall Street for Secretary Clinton during the race. Then Trump gets elected. All of a sudden, Wall Street's very friendly with him. What's going on? Did they like him all along or what?
Well, look, the market likes the idea of tax reform and fiscal policy that's going to be pro-growth. And clearly, Trump is out there talking that stance. The question is, to what degree and how big will it be? And those are the things that are going to be answered over the next several months.
There's a great story in Business Week coming out this weekend about uncertainty. And there's this idea that uncertainty is not good for markets. That's obviously a lot of times when markets go down, as a stock market reporter, well, it's uncertainty, right? It's an easy fallback. We've got a lot of uncertainty right now. What is different about it this time around where people are still saying, we're comfortable being in, financial markets?
The uncertainty is lying with the fact, how much pro-growth is he going to be? Not the question, is he pro-growth? So that's why you've seen the markets rally, you've seen risk assets. People want to have risk assets on their books because the feeling right now is he's clearly in a position to have a pro-growth stance, and he's got the Senate and the House behind him to do it.
So it's more of a means to an end.
Correct.
And you assume what the end is.
Well, the end is growth, right?
If he's able to move his policies forward, if he's able to, it seems like he's going to, because as you point out, he has the House backing. Was that to some degree sort of the wild card? Because there was an idea that maybe he would win, but he wouldn't have the congressional support.
Clearly, the Republican Party was split at one point in time right before the election, so it was hard to understand what was going to happen. When Paul Ryan came in, clearly that changed the dynamic of how he was going to be perceived on the Hill. And certainly going forward, it feels like everyone has a pro-growth agenda in the Republican Party.
When you sort of assess markets in general and the state of the economy here, Trump paints a pretty negative picture of it. We were just talking about U3 employment. It's darn low. What exactly does he need to do? What does he need to target? And are there things that can be targeted to crank up growth?
Well, I think reform clearly comes in many different forms. Regulatory reform, so if you have less regulatory issues, you can grow your business faster. I think certainly he's trying to do that. I think a simplified tax reform, that is a tax cut, will be great for the country as well. So he does have the tools to do it. He's going to have to get it passed, and that's always the challenge. And that's why I think you'll probably see the markets stagnate around here for a while until there's an understanding of just how big we're talking about and what kind of reforms he can get through.
When you think about what he's talking about with deregulation, there's a lot of talk about, we need to loosen regulations. He says we're going to do a big number on Dodd-Frank. As a CEO of a financial institution, what to you is the most specific where you can say this needs to go, and this is low-hanging fruit?
Well, I think Dodd-Frank put incredible restrictions on how some of the institutions can work. Now, I think when we look at regulatory reform, it's always challenging with an issue that's in place. So Dodd-Frank is in place. I think at the margin, some things will change with Dodd-Frank. I think what's happened is we've taken a lot of the potential future regulatory issues off the table completely. So that's helped. And then it's going to be, how do you actually get Dodd-Frank pulled back in some ways? It's not going away, in my opinion. I think it'll still be there, but it will certainly be pulled back. And that's good for the financial services.
So it's an issue of sort of the short-term and the long-term effects of deregulation. The short-term as a CEO, I would think it would be, hey, this feels great. But when you look at his cabinet and you see a lot of ex-Wall Street guys, ex-bankers, are you at all concerned that they could go too far? Which would then be, as we know, we saw in 08, we saw in 09, the negative effects of too much deregulation.
Well, if you look at the regulatory environment now, it is a global regulatory environment. So Basel's still out there, MiFID is still out there. Those things aren't going to change, right? So when we look at it, we're talking about a US-centric kind of thought, and I think we have to move away from that somewhat. So that's why when you think about regulatory environments, you really have to think from a global perspective. These are global institutions. We have offices in 20 countries, so it's a different mentality, and you have to understand the global picture. And I don't think the regulatory environment there is going to change drastically. So again, at the margin, I think it helps here clearly, but I think it's at the margin.